All right, guys. Got some work done today. I had to make up a valve. Let me show it to you. All right, not my best work. It was a 202. I was trying to cut it down to 1.85. I overshot it a touch. It's actually 1.845 with a 50, but it had a really nasty lip on top. So I had to machine that lip. You'll see we have flows with a back cut, without a back cut. With the back cut is actually two back cuts because I had to take that lip off, and then I had to put a 35-degree back cut on top of that. So it's a 19.5 to get that ridge off, and then a 35, and then a 50. Where did I get 35 from? It's called a guess. Okay, I did a couple different flows. Why don't we just go through them, and you can see I finally blended out the chamber. Blending out the chamber was the last flow. All right. The bowl job is still exactly the same. The rest of the port is cleaned. So my 50-degree valve job is fair, I would say. I am definitely not a 50-degree valve job expert by any means. So it's not perfect, but it's good enough for us to check out. Okay. All right, hold on one sec. Okay, so what we're going to be comparing is intake, bowl blend, valve job 178 versus 1.845 with a 50-degree, no back cut that still had a big lip on the edge. And it says I did a bowl blend. Oh, that was on the bowl blend. Okay. Alrighty. Now, minus. It finally catches up at 400, and then it takes off from there. Okay, 212 is not a bad number. We were only getting 217 on the DV E7TEs with a 194. So they did pretty good at the higher lifts. Lower lifts, not great. Right? Okay, let's compare our small valve to our 1.6 with a 50. Okay, the 1.6 with a 50 was just an old GM valve I put a 50 on. You can still see there's a bit of the 45 on that. So, are you considering that a back cut? I guess you could, but I wouldn't put a back cut on it. Got to use what I got, you know what I mean? Okay, so plus, all the way down. Right? Comparing this row to this row. It's a winner all the way down with the bigger valve. Now that was just a 60-degree angle for the throat. And I didn't bring it all the way out to the seat because I want to blend that into a radius, so it was a really wide seat. So let's take a look at... Alright, let me get my head straight. Okay, guys. Okay, we got 1.6. That's our first cut. And this, all I did is I blended in my radius. You guys can see that. But I left the throat really big. Really small. I kept the throat as small as I possibly could keep it. because you can always make it bigger, right? So that's a relatively tight throat still. And the seat is still quite large. I really didn't shrink the seat up yet. So let's take a look and see what the radius did. Minus, minus, and for some reason that happens. At some of the lower lifts, it really prefers sharp angles. All right, then we got plus, 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 all the way down to the end. Okay, you've got some decent gains. Not unbelievably great, but definitely gains. And considering that exhaust port is kind of just a quickie one-off, clean it up, really? That's really a decent exhaust flow. I mean, that's 175 with a small pipe at 500. That's actually really good. I mean, it's certainly not bad for a tiny port. These are, I looked them up, 127 stock on the intake and 44 on the exhaust. I bet that exhaust port is no more than 46 right now. So it's a tiny port. Maybe 47. Okay, the other flow that I wanted to go over with you guys is this one, 1.845. No back cut, but I blended the 60 in the intake port. Not a lot. It's still quite wide. Come on, give me a focus here. There we go. Right, the 60 is still really wide. I just blended that in a little bit. Let's see how much of a gain we get on that. Okay. This one versus this one. I hope I didn't go over this already, guys, because I'm a little toasted already. Okay, plus, 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 plus. Two minuses, which is a little strange in the middle of the curve. All right, 250 and 300. Plus, 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 plus. I would think the radius would be plus all the way down, but it's not. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, I know what else I wanted to show you guys. Here. This one here, which is the 1.84 on the bowl, just the bowl job. I haven't changed the bowl job at all yet. So all of these flows are just with a quickie bowl job. The rest of the port is cleaned. It's nothing has been taken out of the port. So it's really quite small still. We're going to compare this one, and the way I did the valve job, I was actually able to stick a 194 with a 45 on it and get it to seal no problem. So take a look at this, right? If we're comparing this column to this column, plus, 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 and then only at 500 does the 50-degree seat take over and make some good gains. Now this really isn't that bad considering what it is. I mean, right, at 500 you're still 195. 195 is not a terrible number for these heads. Remember, I'm only getting on the really good ones that I did for DV that I sent away, that I was getting 238 I got on them. These I don't have nowhere near that much work into them yet. But obviously, you know, the 45 you would expect to do better on low lifts, and it's a bigger valve, so it introduces more area. So it basically did exactly what I would have expected it to do. Okay. Okay, this one here, this flow versus this flow, I put that back cut on that intake valve. Okay, so these pluses are in reference to these flows. Right, plus, 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 all the way to 600. And at 600, we get a pulsation, and it loses it. Now, somebody's going to say, why do you think that happened, Charlie? Well, I think because you put the back cut on there, it was able to put more air around. I actually think what it did is it made the short side radius fail, or not fail, become more turbulent, where it's separating off the short side radius. That's what I think happened to us. And you could hear it. It sounded terrible. Actually, you know what? This one was even worse. So if you take a look at this one versus this one, that's when I blended the chamber. Okay, this one still has the sharp cuts that I showed you yesterday in the chamber. But as I know, the sharp cuts, right? The sharp cuts with those sharp edges. See that real sharp edge in there? Oh, that's horrible. I feel. Okay. That is what I actually look like. Pretty sad, right? Those sharp angles actually seem to work better at the low lifts than blended out like that. So let's take a look at it. Okay. These pluses and minuses are in reference to these flows. So you got a plus, you got a minus. You got a plus, minus, minus, minus right in the middle. Plus, and then it got super noisy and lost. Right? Lost, lost, lost. So, why did that happen? Well, that's a good question. You would think it would flow around the periphery of the valve better. But I should show you guys the short side radius. Hold on a second. See if we can get some light on it. There we go. Okay, short side radius. You can see it's roughed out, and I did not bring the apex of that short side radius down. I want to see what I can do leaving it where it is first. Because it's a 50, right? How can we explain it? A 50 works better on a tall port, okay? And these are extremely shallow. I mean, let me see if I can find that drawing of the E7TE head. Okay, guys, I dug these up. These are the E7TE DV version that are on the table. These are the ones that were very thin on the roof of the short side radius. I would have liked to have dropped that apex and give it a more gradual turn. Well, the way I'm doing these right now, right? They're even steeper than these, okay? And it's a smaller valve, okay? So what we're talking about, when we put our valve here, right, with the steeper seat, the air wants to come straight down on top of the valve and then around. Now, when you have a standard valve, right, it would like to skip off the short side radius and go right to the far chamber side. It's called windowing. It goes right across. So I'm going to do what I can on this to get the air to come straight down on that valve, which means I'm going to try to leave that short side radius straighter, okay, taller and straighter. I'm not 100% sure it's going to work. That's kind of why DV was saying, you know, I don't think that's the right approach. Well, it's definitely going to take some work. Remember, the 50 changes a bunch of stuff, and I have not been a fan of 50s, but for what these guys are going to be used for, I think they're going to work out when I figure it all out. All right, guys, have a good night.